Clairvoyant counselor and spiritual teacher is not your average occupation, but it's been mine for over 20 years. Because most people aren't familiar with this vocation, I'm often asked how I got started, what my childhood was like, and questions like, did you always know you had healing and clairvoyant abilities? To answer some of these questions, I've put together an account of experiences that shaped my life and led me to who I am and what I do today. Childhood. Because I was raised as a Catholic, saints and angels were always very real to me. I could see them. I didn't just imagine them, I actually saw them. It never occurred to me as a child that this was unusual. I assumed everyone saw angels as clearly as I did. In church on Sundays, when the priest talked about them, I took it for granted that everyone felt their presence in the room. I saw such beings hanging around the church ceiling. Of course, I thought everyone else saw them too. I was amazed when people didn't pay attention during Mass and talked or acted up. I could never understand why they would behave that way with these sacred figures looking down on them. I quickly learned that seeing saints and angels wasn't common for other people. Somehow, though, others seemed to recognize that I had this gift. I remember that, without any soliciting on my part, other children would often come up to me and whisper in hushed tones that they had momentarily seen the Blessed Virgin. They seemed to know that I wouldn't think they were crazy. People just seemed drawn to tell me these things. I especially remember classmates telling me if they got a quick glimpse of an angel. They always shared these visions in a conspiratorial manner. They told me that they wouldn't dare tell anyone else what they'd seen. I began to realize that much of what I saw all the time, most people never saw at all. I can't say that, as a child, I thought my ability to see things was very important. However, when I was 10 years old, I saw something that made a big impression on me. As an altar boy, I was always fascinated by the idea that, during Mass, the bread and wine were changed into Christ's actual body and blood. I wondered whether this was really true. In fact, this transubstantiation is the only thing I remember wondering about as a little child. One cold, rainy morning in March, when I was 10 years old, I had to serve at 6 a.m. Mass. I rode my bicycle through the rain around 5:30 a.m. to get to church on time. One of our priests was older, not one of the new, hip priests who started showing up in the 60s. He was an old-style Irish priest, very kind, gentle, and devout. When I served Mass with him, I always felt that I was at some sacred ritual. With other priests, I got the feeling they were just doing their job. On this particular morning, I wasn't paying much attention to the ongoing Mass and just automatically made my responses in Latin. But when the old priest lifted up the host to say, "Take and eat this body," a distinct warmth flooded the room. I saw a great golden cloud filling the entire church. It wasn't candle glow. It was a definite, distinct energy that poured over everything. It was focused around the old priest, and I could see that a shaft of light emanating from somewhere above and beyond the church was piercing the ceiling and flowing into the host being raised into the air. The sensation that a warm, breathing human being was very near was somehow a part of this golden light. As I watched the light shining on the host, a part of me said, I should do this. I should become a priest and learn to do this. Yet, as I had this thought, a voice came out of nowhere and said, "This is not for you." As soon as the voice uttered those words, I realized that I wasn't really part of the phenomenon I was witnessing. Even though I knew I was seeing a miracle, that I was having an experience connected with what is at the core of the Catholic faith in which I then believed, I didn't feel a part of what was going on. I felt that what was happening just wasn't meant for me. This sense of being an outside observer was to become a theme in much of my spiritual life.